and you abandon your empire. And in law, once you abandon something, you can't reclaim it. And if you can't reclaim it, then whoever's got it, they're chilling. Because you can't reclaim it, because you abandoned it. You got, just like the brother said, I found 40 bucks outside, yeah. Sorry for whoever lost it. Because you abandoned it.
That's like that in the story of the alchemist.
Yeah.
He didn't go for the thief at the end. But for whoever didn't see, I don't want to spoil it, but if you plan to, just close your ears. But the thief at the end said he should have that he got a dream to get the treasure.
Yeah.
And he didn't go for it.
Yeah.
He laughed it off. But then the treasure was waiting there for Santiago, for the boy.
Yeah.
So it's still.
Yeah.
He's not lying. That was Mr. Fred going through there.
No,
right?
that's from Mr.
Science. Go ahead, brother. Speak some science.
Not better can play right now. Not better can play. The encouragement which your majesty has been pleased generously to give to our commerce with your dominions, the punctuality with which have caused the treaty with us to be observed, and just and generous measures taken in the case of Captain Proctor, make a deep impression on the United States, and confirm their respect for and attachment to your Imperial Majesty. It gives me great pleasure to have the opportunity of assuring your Majesty that while I remain at the head of this nation, I shall not cease to promote every measure that may conduce to the friendship and harmony which so happily subsist between your empire and them. I shall not cease to promote every measure that may conduce to the friendship and harmony which so happily subsists between your empire and them. This is George Washington talking. So George Washington was unanimously appointed supreme executive authority of this nation called United States, but he's referring to the United States as them. So if he's saying them, that means he's not talking about us. He's separating himself. And he's separating himself because of that picture right there. That George Washington knew about the indigenous people in this land. That some of them were quote-unquote slaves that were in the field and picking cotton and working in the house and whatever. And then there were some slaves that were right next to their masters. And they're just in the best clothes, and they were the sellout nigger. Because that's how we taught the Masons.
Say that again, sir?
We taught the Masons.
No, you say, and there were some that were right next to their master?
There were some slaves that were next to their master that they don't talk about in quote-unquote black history. They don't talk about this. All they talk about is the slaves that got beat and brought over on slave ships and all that. They don't ever talk about the slaves that were directly hitched underneath the master at all times, like a bodyguard. And people like George Washington had that opportunity, because these were the times that they were building the relations. These were the times that they were teaching them. Because don't forget, he's telling you that the government dissolved. So we can't do it in a form of government with them. We can't come and sit down with them and say, well, we're the United States of American Republic, and you're the United States, and we need to have a conversation about how things are going to run now. That's dissolved.
What time are you talking about?
This is 17, this is late 1700s.
So George Washington, he's the president of the United States of America Republic and the United States Corporation?
No, just the United
Just the
States.
United States.
So he's not the head of the United States of America Republic?
No, that's you.
That's you.
I thought he was the ninth head of the,
No, he was the ninth, he's the ninth head in the sense of, if you are counting numbers, right? But the United States that's a private corporation, that has nothing to do.
so he's the ninth head of the United States Corporation?
He's the ninth head of the republic, but he's not really part of the republic. Because he abandoned his position to the republic to be the supreme executive authority for the corporate guys. So he went and contracted with them, and then they were using him as the stick to reach and have relations with the Sultan of Morocco. Who knows about the Moroccan Empire and knows that the only authority over here that has any authority is Congress. But this isn't Congress talking right now. This is George Washington personally writing a letter to a dude that he doesn't even know, talking about he's the one. Because they didn't know over there that it was dissolved. Because they were in on it. And that's how you get the whole thing with Northern Africa being involved in the slave trade. Arabs in the slave trade. You know when they talk about Arabs,
Mhm.
and then they and then the black power people point at the pale Arab and say, yeah, he was our slave master. No, that was your own buddies. That was people who were dark skinned just like you. Because there were no pale Arabs down them times. Pale Arabs looked like the Sultan of Morocco. And he wasn't no pale Arab. He was brown skinned, dark skinned. He might not have had kinky hair, big nose or whatever, but he was dark skinned.
Can I ask a question?
For sure.
Wasn't there even, the Moors that were, at the time of slavery, they were free Moors too?
Right.
At that same time, right? On the land?
Exactly. Please. With, just like you're saying, right? That's like,
Because they would have their nationality card or papers when this was happening. They would say, "Let me see your papers," and they would say, "Okay, they're free Moors."
right.
But this
So,
was-
so you can check sundry free Moors, SUNDRY, free Moors. And then in also too with Abraham Lincoln and all these people, and they're talking about, yeah, these guys were slaveholders. You know, some of them weren't slaveholders. Some of them were Masons getting taught by the Moors.
Yes, sir.
Because, like, when if a government gets dissolved, like that's chaos. In some places, like if there's no government, like here for a little time there was no government. Parliament closed their doors or whatever. There was no government, and that was the people's opportunity to be the government. But everybody abandoned their position, so these guys came again, set up their election thing, everybody voted, and now we got them again for the next 4 years.
That was just recently they took that little holiday or
Right.
whatever, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. I know.
because of Harper.
Yeah, they took that break because, they shut down. That was our chance to say, okay, we don't know how to govern. We the people, we govern ourselves.
Yeah. But Negro, blacks, and colors, and Africans, and those people, they don't think about stuff like that.
In kindergarten, elementary,
Yeah.
we don't think like adults.
Even you know, like Todd says, you have big bodies, but you have the mentality of a minor. because you don't understand these basic principles. Like again, we're just going through some slides. We never went into no books yet, looked up nothing. And it's blatantly obvious that people know about the Moors. It's not a secret. Like a Moor is any dark-skinned person, especially an African Negro. Like that's a Moor. Then everybody in here is a Moor. Not because I say so, because a Moor is any dark-skinned person. I see very dark-skinned people in here. Right? Moors have a responsibility to the world, as demonstrated during, but not limited to, the era when civilization flourished as a result of their contributions and influences in Europe. And that's during the Renaissance, the Moorish Renaissance. That if you ask a historian, they'll tell you Moorish Renaissance. If you ask anybody else, they'll just say Renaissance. Oh yeah, the Renaissance period.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, the Renaissance period. Right after the medieval period. But it leave Moors out. When, as soon as you go in there and you type in medieval period, you're going to go directly into the Moors civilizing these people during their dark ages. But they never had anything and they were drawing and quartering people for foolishness. And put a thing in your mouth and open it to dislocate your jaw just because like you stole some bread. Right? When people say Moors, there is always a neglect for what the Moors did in Europe. You just, well, yeah, the Moors civilized Spain, yeah. But Christopher Columbus discovered North America and then they go off into that story without even figuring out that all Christopher Columbus's crew came from the Spanish dungeons, from the Spanish Inquisition, when they put the Moors there. And that's in his stuff. That he says that he went to when Aragon and Castile, before they merged and became what they call Spain, when they were separate, it was King Ferdinand that told him, go to the Spanish dungeons and get your crew. Why? Because that's where all the navigators are at. That's where all the navigators are at. That's where all the people who were the civilizers of these Europeans in Europe, when they did the Spanish Inquisition and kicked the Moors out of Spain, they jailed some, they killed some went into exile, some went back to other places, some came back over here. Because the history of the Moors is vast. That's why if you have to dock your boat, they call it mooring. That's why when they call a big open piece of land moor. Because, like, what else are they going to call it? It's the Moor stuff. Europa, which was a Moorish queen. And then Zeus is the one that turned into a bull and then got Europa and then played Europa in the Greek mythology. And then Europa in the Greek mythology, she was like a daughter of some king of Tyre or something like that, which is like North Africa, which is basically Moor. And coming back to Moors again, but they say Europa and not say Moors, and you go past it and think that as